Okay, the long-awaited review of my past 12 days on my DIY home training camp that I did. I'm going to show you my Training Peaks screen because it'll be a lot easier to explain what I did, why, how. I've got some notes as well because otherwise I'm just going to go off topic and I want to keep this short and sweet. My training camp started on the 9th. It was a Tuesday. I scheduled a period of like between 10 and 12 days where I would just dedicate myself to like riding my bike and probably more importantly recovering. Training block is very hard to get right unless you have good recovery. So I made sure that a lot of the stuff I had to catch up on was done and I could clear time available to ride longer and to put more, time and effort into that. So the first ride was a pretty steady one because I had a Zwift race that evening. So I had to be quite careful about intensity during this period because, as many of you will know, following me the last couple of weeks, months since coming back from COVID, I've been doing like quite a wide variety, a mix of intervals, but now I felt it was like the right time to just go into doing a specific block of volume. And usually when you go into a specific block of volume, you tend to be very intensive. You just kind of go, all in for that one thing. So I'm going to jump back and forth between intervals.icu, which is a good website you can link up with Strava, and Training Peaks. So on intervals ICU, you can see that my week breakdown on my left of the screen here is categorized as base. And you can pretty much guess by the breakdown. I was doing 75 and 75% respectively of my training in zone 2, a little bit in zone 1. Sometimes that can't be helped. When you're riding outside, you've got junctions and stuff. At the end of the day, you can't get too hung up on it. It is what it is. But the idea for this was to kind of treat it like I was abroad and I was doing a training camp abroad. And a lot of the times you'll see, elite riders or, the professional teams adopt a 3-day training, 1 rest day approach, and they work through their 12 days in that fashion. Basically ride 2 6-hour rides. That was like my main target. The rest of it would kind of be filler rides. So it's very easy when you have 2 big targets like that. And the rest of the time you can just say, well, I'm going to ride, 4 hours this side of that 6-hour day and 2 hours that side of the 6-hour day. There's no real like right or wrong way of doing it. At the end of the day, I'm just trying to get volume in and spending more time on the bike. And because of that, I was focusing a lot more on zone 2. So there's no right or wrong way of doing it. The only thing I was, doubly careful of was doing too much intensity. Because I'm going from, basically 14, 15 hours a week to, I think I did almost 40 hours in 10 days. So it's very important that you be careful overloading as much as that when you haven't done, as much volume as this for a long time. So we're going to have a look at that first 6-hour ride. Okay, so the first 6-hour ride was a fairly flat ride, but it's important to gather information and learn from it. So, obviously we tried to pedal for as much as possible. It was quite a busy loop though, and I wasn't necessarily on it in terms of like trying to keep to my word and trying to do the training effectively. I did my best, but I wasn't exactly fully focused. If we look at the last day of the camp, which turned out to be day 11, we can see there's actually a bigger difference in my ability to produce power at a slightly lower heart rate. Now, I explained in a few videos that this should be taken with a pinch of salt because fatigue can lower heart rate, dehydration can lower heart rate, can increase heart rate, etc., etc. So, like, I was still probably more so paying attention to how I felt rather than what the numbers said, because the numbers can tell you one thing, but I always say, you know, what's the internal dialogue? How do you feel? So I have to say that the final 6-hour ride that I did, when compared to that first 6-hour ride, there was quite a big difference. And, you know, they were like 7 days apart. Obviously lots of riding in between them, but there was a huge difference in sensations. I don't really know what else to tell you about that training block that I did, because I made videos throughout that training block, which you can go back and see, or you probably followed along, and that offered some kind of insight. But what I would say is I feel better now than I did before it. It was a big increase in volume, so I have to be careful now about, you know, how much I do in the next week or so. But I'll come up with another video soon, within the next week, explaining where I plan to go for the next phase, you know, the next month. It's going to be a very loose kind of idea of what's going to be going on, because for the most part, I just have ideas that I kind of put down and then I kind of fuse them all together. So it's more a case of pinpointing certain things that I want to do in that month and then working around that. So I'll explain to you what I'm going to do for the next month in that video. I feel great after that block though, as much of you probably thought I would, because zone 2 is just brilliant. Like when you go from doing very little of it to a lot of it, and if you get the time to do it, you know, the biggest thing is you have to be quite focused when you do it. You know, it's very easy to get caught up on these kind of long rides and think like, oh, there's a climb coming up, I'm gonna attack it, I'm gonna give it everything. These rides have literally just been, you know, me riding my bike and trying to stay in zone 2 for as much as possible. So all is well. Now, if you want to do the same, and obviously you're probably going to require extra time in your plan to do the same or similar if you want to, you know, increase the volume and things, I would maybe err on the side of caution if it's your first time. But if you're doing, say, you know, 8 hours a week, try 12 hours. If you do 10 hours a week, try 15. You know, if you do 15, try 22 or 23. That's kind of what I shot for the first 6 days, and then I kept working on that until the 12th day. So again, work in blocks, don't work in weeks, because if you work in weeks, you're kind of pinning yourself down to a time frame that's not necessarily the best for human performance. Like our bodies don't work by, you know, week, month time frames. They literally work on hour time frames. So for me, I always think of it in blocks. It can be 2 days on, 1 day off, 2 days on, 1 day off. It can be 3 days on, 1 day off. I wouldn't recommend doing more than 3, just for consistency's sake. In the same kind of tone, think about your recovery in hours as well. So think about, you know, if you're doing a session on a Monday morning and you're doing a session Tuesday night, you've actually got more than 24 hours of recovery there. So if you think about it like that, rather than thinking about it in days, you know, that would just be 1 day to you, but it's actually more than a day. So you might be able to get more stimulus or whatever it is you're looking for during this period out of yourself if you think of it in a different way. So I hope that's helped. If you've got any specific questions, maybe you follow me on Strava and you've seen a couple of rides I've done, you know, comment down below and I get back to you on that. But I hope that kind of caught you up with the whole training camp thing. And yeah, thanks for watching.